Dijeron igualdad, pero esta vez me separaron. Dijeron mucho, pero no se olvidaron de callarse. Cuánto odio por mi piel sembraron. Dijeron historia y la tergiversaron. Dijeron guerra, muerte, odio y nos culparon. Siempre. Enfermedades, epidemias nos contagiaron. Exterminación de mi fauna complace a tus mercados. Dijeron riqueza y todos se lo robaron. Oro, platino, diamante, a la fuerza se lo llevaron. Y la actualidad es tan triste que todo aquello que dijeron es lo mismo que hoy se dice más. ¿Quién dice, quién explota, quién se beneficia? El asesino, el mismo que da las noticias. Hay una cuenta fácil que siempre me da las grandes riquezas, de dónde vienen y hacia dónde van.
Independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao, independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao. Nati Dre es afroresistencia, cultura ancestral, afrodescendencia, solidaridad. Esa es la esencia, la diáspora africana eleva la conciencia, conciencia negra, universal, progresista y transcultural. Negros y mestizos revolucionando, pueblos caribeños y africanos en un solo bando. No más explotación, colonialismo interno, no más confusión, supremacía blanca en el Babilón. Soy rojo, negro y verde, afroliberación. Mientras más negro, más represión. Somos creadores, recupera tu visión. Mi misión es educar con amor, contra el silencio, vivo sin temor. Independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao, independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao.
You know what it is, you know what it is, you know what it is. What's happening?
Wake up, rise up.
Okay. It's the Rise Up International Morning Show. We here. We out here, as they say.
We are.
Yeah.
All the way out here, right?
Indeed. I don't think they're ready. They didn't know we was coming on today.
Look, we explained last week that we are being intentional. We are doing a lot more to make sure that we are truly representing the people, that we are getting not only the news out here, but making sure that we are taking the time to let the uprisers know that the Rise Up Morning Show is here for them. So not only do we want to become more consistent with regular programming, but we want to make sure that what we're bringing to the uprisers and to all those who will see this broadcast, that it's something that is intentional, that it is informative, and that we give clear marching orders, and that we continue to organize on this platform. So yeah, man, I know they were not expecting us, but hey, it's always good to have a pleasant surprise, right?
Without a doubt. Who's that in the wind over there, brother over there, trying to look quiet and whatnot?
Now, how's everybody doing, man? It's always dope to be with my comrades here in the morning, man. For everybody watching, make sure y'all like, subscribe, and share. Let everybody know what we're doing. Again, like Reverend Kiana said, man, we're intentional about what we do here, not just coming on here to talk your head off. You know, we're trying to give you something real. So make sure you let everybody know what we got going on. Like, subscribe, and share, and send that link out.
Definitely trying to keep it real as much as we can, right?
Absolutely.
That's all we know. And you notice he said Reverend Kiana. You know,
I was about to say you acting like you ain't get the memo. It is not that kind of party over here.
Well, no. Rakeem's the bishop, so you want to make sure the deacon brother, you know what I'm saying?
Right?
You want to make sure that you praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. That's what we do right here.
You know.
Yeah. In the name of Nat Turner, we say, I say, definitely today is Tuesday, March 17th. Is it March 17th or is it March 18th? Who knows? Whatever it is.
March 18th.
Okay, you know,
yeah,
I mean,
March 18th.
I'm here, there, and everywhere. You know what I'm saying? But, definitely good to see you all early in this day. You know what I mean? It's a lot going on. It's a lot of freedom fighting to be done. We have a number of things coming up. I want to make a quick announcement. two things. Number one, there is a webinar coming up on April 17th, and we are promoting it early. Why? Because you need to get a ticket. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to be a fee. You know what I mean? But at the same time, we want you to be ready, because sometimes I think that folks are accustomed to, just turning on YouTube and hearing talking heads and all that. We're going in the toolbox, and we're going to bring some folks out. So for this joint, Beyond Cop City, focusing on not only cop cities, but counterinsurgency, we have Kiana Jones Moore on deck. We have Dr. Joy James on deck. We have Dr. Myron Gilmore on deck, and a few other folks. We ain't gonna tell you everybody, but just know that April 17th, we're talking about the business. It's a whole lot of talk around Cop City, and most of these folks are saying the same old tired shit. It's like the same
Yes.
talk.
Yes.
We're gonna get to the meat of it. You know what I'm saying? Because I think it's necessary. And I heard someone say before, they's like, well, I didn't see Kalonji out at a lot of the Cop City protests. Listen, we live in a police state, and Cop City is just one iteration of what's been going on since we've landed on this particular space that they call the U.S. or whatever the case is, Turtle Island, right?
That's right.
So yeah, so
one part of the fight, and the thing is, we shouldn't have to see Kalonji out at the Cop City stuff, because there are enough of us that we can cover all things, because everybody cannot do one thing. The Bible talks about the diversity of gifts and the diversity of how things work. If your entire body was an eye, how would you hear? If your entire body was an ear, how would you see and how would you walk? And if your entire body was an ass, some of you are. I'm just kidding.
Whole asses out here, Kiana.
Whole lot of
whole asses.
Being a little bit facetious, but honestly, if we all did the same thing, can you imagine how much would go lacking? We see already that there are some people who have absolutely zero discipline in their activism, because many of them are not organizers, but even in their organizing, as soon as something is hot, they're on it.
Without a doubt.
For as long as it's hot, and the next thing you know, they're on to the next, and they have just dropped that thing.
Yeah, man, you
all like that.
Yeah. But to your point, one thing that, if you've been organizing for a while, you would know that there was more police posing as protesters at Cop City than there were actually protesters. That's a whole nother story. Y'all don't want to talk about that because it sounds like we're preaching. Anyway.
It's real. It's real. And people got to understand that, at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, organizing and being in political spaces, like revolutionary political spaces, is more than about showing up at a rally and a protest. Those of us who really do this work know that there is no point in having a rally without a demand. There's no point in a protest without direct action to follow. Those things don't move the needle very much if you are not doing this with an extraordinary number of people at a very strategic time. But what happens is that the real work is done after those events are over, and much of it behind the scenes by people whose names will never be known and faces you will never recognize. So they can miss me with the I didn't see you, because I promise you, people don't see me in a lot of places, and that's intentional.
Listen, you're checking out the Rise Up International Morning Show, and true to the name, we are international, so we had to call on the comrade and OG, who is currently based in Africa, who's been in Africa for quite a while. Y'all see him every now and then here on the shores of North America. He's going to turn his camera on in a second. We're going to bring him on. But when you talk about counterinsurgency, when you talk about COINTELPRO, when you talk about a Cop City, he's been battling these mothers before many of us were born. So I want to bring to the stage a brother who is no stranger to this danger, to this platform, keeping it warm. My man DBW, Dhoruba Ben Wahad, and he got them shades on just in case y'all don't know, because his future's so bright. Unmute yourself just in case, man. I don't want to give it to him all at once. D, what's happening, my man?
How you doing, black man? How you doing, Sister Kiana?
Hey, Baba.
How you doing? How you doing, comrade?
Yeah. I'm glad to even this impromptu diatribe or whatever we want to call it. I think it's important, and I just want to say that for all of the brothers and sisters that's on the alternate media, that it's very important that y'all keep your voices loud and clear. That only criticism I have, I think that many of us and many of the platforms should engage in very timely uh, um, um, commentaries on events that are unfolding in real time, whether they're international or local, and so that we can have our constituents and our people begin to read between the lines with the mass line of our enemies, and the way the media is working, man. Like Malcolm said they'll have you believing that the oppressed are the exploiters and the exploiters are the oppressors. So they'll just have us all backwards. And so I just want to say that shout out to Black Power Media, shout out to all the brothers and sisters, who are still trying to keep uh, analysis and open organization and information alive.
Absolutely. There was an article recently in Media Matters, as a matter of fact, that talked about the right wing taking over really much of even online media. And sometimes what we don't realize, those of us who are in alternative media systems and bring decolonial news to people, is that where we're not concentrating, they are. So the right wing propaganda seeps even into sports radio, other supposedly non-political spaces, comedy radio. Think of the entire media ecosystem, and particularly the online media ecosystem. Right wing propaganda is embedded in all of it, and they really have made like increases by leaps and bounds within this past year. Whether it is YouTube, Spotify, Twitch, Rumble, whatever it is, the right wing has its hands in all of the media that's going forward. So it's not just mainstream, it's online media too. And many of the spaces that people would consider as alternative media spaces, they are still dominated by right-wing propaganda and influence.
Absolutely.
I think that what we should know, what you should say to folks at every turn is that ask people what's the price for knowledge? What's the price for knowledge? And the price for knowledge is to pay attention.
Absolutely.
And in this age of information and information weaponization, information is intelligence, and you have to be able to distinguish or begin to question a narrative that coming from the enemy can't be correct. People think that we could talk and dialogue with those who are in power in the white supremacist construct that is the United States. That we could have a meaningful dialogue based on our common humanity. I don't think that that's possible because we don't share a common humanity. That's why Trump could talk about how we have to have a peace deal, or they have to have a peace deal in the Ukraine because young people are dying. Young people are being murdered right before our eyes in Palestine and Western Asia.
That's right.
Children, 17,000 women and children butchered with U.S.-made weapons. They keep certain people in certain parts of the United States employed, making bombs and cluster bombs and different types of weapons of mass destruction and decimation. So we need to understand that the price of knowledge is to pay attention to what's going on. And that may be hard for a lot of us who are working class, who have to get to work and who have to, punch a time clock or who have to manage kids and stuff. It's not that easy. So this is one of the reasons why I think that in terms of black alternative media, it's time for there to be a convention or a national conference of all you guys, Sabi Sabs, I watch all of y'all, and come together and say, man, we need to put monitors in every barbershop, in every beauty parlor, in every laundromat. where black people are sitting, doing their thing or getting their nails and hair done. You understand? We need to have wireless monitors in there where people could just pay with a barber or an emporium, where it's I could pay like say $20 a month, and we need to stream community information. We need to stream your programs right into the doctor's office, just like them old crappy ass videos that they have that you be watching waiting to get called in the emergency room. You see, so I mean, this is something that's doable, and we need to take these Negroes that they're supposed to have these bloated bank accounts from skinning and grinning in Hollywood and humping in the sports arena in the coliseums and stuff. We need to get them to pay for this shit, and if they don't want to pay, we need to boycott them. We need to boo them. We need to throw popcorn at them when they're on the basketball court. I mean, we got to begin to hold each other accountable. White supremacy does not function based on our personal and individual likes and dislikes. It functions based on a systematic system of exploitation and state terror and exploitation and state terror of working people. So we have to get information out to people, and the price of knowledge is to pay attention. So I think we should really understand that, especially in this off election year coming up, because many of these Negroes, the three baboons that we mentioned earlier, that's in Congress and in the House, they're up for re-election in 27 and 26. Now all politics is local.
That's right.
We wanted to bring you on here today, Dhoruba, because basically some of what you already alluded to. I haven't seen you in a while, man. I ain't seen you since Noam Chomsky was potty training. So you know what I'm saying? Now that we back together again, you know what I'm saying? I want to.
Noam Chomsky looks like the sage that's transcending into the next level, man. And it seems he gets clearer and clearer as he goes along, man. It's amazing.
Shout out to Noam, man. I'm trying to set something up with you and Noam. I think that'd be a man,
that'd be great, man. That'd be great.
No doubt. Anyway, man, I know folks gonna be booing me for that, but I don't know where the hell I get what I'm saying from, but I want to it just be shit be coming to my head. I think it's coming through the headphones. But anyway, we want to start off, man, because I know that we've been talking behind the scenes. When you talk about white supremacy, it's long. You know what I'm saying? And they go to extreme lengths. It's like it's not a simple thing. They'll accuse you of being racist. You understand what I'm saying? They'll go to extreme lengths. Our dear sister Kiana is gonna preface this with an article that's been circulating all throughout, the diaspora, throughout Western media, etc. And folks haven't seemed to check it, man. It seems like we just let them get away with whatever the hell they got coming out their mouth, and we agree with it. I was talking to a brother the other day, and he said that him and his wife was on vacation, and I said, well, where y'all go? He said, we went to the Gulf of America. I said, where the fuck is the Gulf of America? You know what I'm saying? And he was dead serious, man.
He meant that?
Yeah, and his wife was like, yeah. I'm like, oh shit, because I thought he was joking at first. But anyway, it just shows you that whatever they say, we say. But Kiana, man, for folks who are unaware, let's talk about this whole U.S. expelling the South African ambassador, and let's get some words from Dhoruba on that.
In an extremely unsurprising and unprecedented move, the U.S. has expelled the South African ambassador and named him persona non grata, no longer welcome in the United States. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has claimed that Ibrahim Rasool hates America and President Trump personally. Here we are. I mean, look, this is very sophomoric, but
Right.
we need to let people know what's happening. South Africa's ambassador to the United States, Ibrahim Rasool, has been declared persona non grata and is no longer welcome in the country, Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced in a rare diplomatic move on Friday. The South African government has yet to issue an official response after Rubio accused Rasool of being, quote, a race-baiting politician, end quote, who harbors animosity toward Americans and President Donald Trump personally. South Africa's ambassador to the United States is no longer welcome in our great country, Rubio said in a post on X, adding, we have nothing to discuss with him, and so he is considered persona non grata. Rubio did not provide specific reasons for the expulsion, but shared a link to a Breitbart story about Rasool's recent speech at a webinar hosted by a South African think tank, during which he criticized the Trump administration's policies. And this is the quote from Ibrahim Rasool. What Donald Trump is launching is an assault on incumbency, those who are in power, by mobilizing a supremacism against the incumbency at home and abroad as well. This was told to the Mapungubwe. Mapungubwe Institute for Strategic Reflection Forum on Friday. He described Trump's MAGA movement as, quote, a response not simply to a supremacist instinct, but to very clear data that shows great demographic shifts in the USA, end quote. And then he went on to quote, I think that there is also an export of the revolution. And he said that it was no accident that Elon Musk has involved himself in UK politics and that Vice President Vance addressed the Alternative for Germany, or AFD, to strengthen them in their election campaign. The diplomatic rift comes amid escalating tensions between Washington and Pretoria, as Trump recently signed an executive order cutting aid to South Africa, citing a controversial land expropriation law that he claims discriminates against white South Africans. So here we go.
Kiana, and I didn't mean to cut you off, man, but I'm just sitting here and I'm hearing you say that they expelled the South African ambassador on X, a platform that's owned by another South African cracker. So I mean, it's just amazing at the extreme lifts. I wanted to know from our good brother Dhoruba, your thoughts on that, because it's a shame that that this man is so racist. I want to know your thoughts on that, brother. I mean, like, what does this mean to the rest of the world?
Well, I think that address that Brother Ibrahim gave to that consul was spot on. First of all, he mentioned a number of layers in which the white supremacy is asserting itself in the Western metropole. There is a rise of right-wing white supremacist political parties and movements across the spectrum of the EU. There's no question about that. Mm-hmm. And they have a common ideology, and they have a common geopolitical stand against migrants from the global south. They have closed their borders to them. They have demonized Muslims and those who have the former colonies that they once ruled. They have demonized and ostracized the leadership that rejects their ongoing neo-colonialism. So the Ambassador Ibrahim was correct in that respect. And at the epicenter of this, of course, is the United States, which is the primary hegemon in the world, in which democratic fascism is alive and well. And Trump and his MAGA movement, which are basically nationalists, white ethno-nationalist Christians, supporters of Zionism, They are, when they talk about making America great again, they're talking about going to the founding fathers of the European settler state and extolling their their um, their dubious virtues and expertise at genocide. They're renaming and reclaiming so-called Confederate heritage of the struggle between the northern robber barons and budding industrial capitalism and the agrarian South slaveholding gentry and class. So we need to really understand that Brother Ibrahim, who has a history of struggling on the ground in the ANC against apartheid, he spent time on Robbins Island with Nelson Mandela. He is a forthright proponent of anti-white supremacy and apartheid. And the reason why the United States is so hard on South Africa is because of it was the country and the nation that brought the genocide of the Palestinian people in Western Asia before the ICC, the International Criminal Court, and put on Front Street Netanyahu and the criminals of that European settlers project, which, by the way, is the last European settler project from the era of the 19th century. Israel goes back to the Balfour Agreement that Britain penned in anticipation of divvying up the crumbling Ottoman Empire in Western Asia, Lebanon, and Syria, and all of these nations were created in that process. And the European settler state of Israel was granted consideration and an opportunity to establish themselves because the racist, anti-Jewish elite and population in Europe despised the Ashkenazi Jews, and that was a solution to get that type of confrontation, that type of historical contradiction resolved by getting them a homeland and getting them out of Europe. So the first Zionists were basically the proponents of modern Europe, the ones that created Europe at the end of the First World War. And so we really need to understand that Comrade Ibrahim, Ambassador Ibrahim, was expelled not because he himself is a racist. He's the ambassador of a sovereign nation, and therefore his personal views, you understand, are in the context of his role as ambassador. He had an obligation to explain to people his insights of the European mindset that governs white supremacy in America. And finally, he noted that the MAGA movement has emerged, and the ethno-Christian right-wing Tea Party movement that now dominates the Republican Party and parts of the Democratic Party is a response to the browning of America, the ethnic and racial shifts that the United States is headed for in the next 20 years. That in the next 20 years, white male Christians or white male Protestants will be and women will be a national minority. They would have lost their ability to manufacture political outcomes in their favor and in favor of white skin privilege. So they know that a real democracy would mean that Black people, brown people, people of color, people who have naturalized themselves in America, who are non-European, will be calling the shots in government. will be the majority in Congress and in House and in these state legislators. So they're doing everything they can to roll back this inevitable consequence of the white supremacist America that has brought in people from around the world in order to make itself the premier post-industrial and technological nation that it is. So I think that the Ambassador Ibrahim was labeled a racist, was labeled divisive, and we know that the Rubios and the Orange Man and that crew, whoever they claim is a terrorist, whoever they claim is a racist, whoever they claim are inhumane, it's them that they're projecting themselves on other people and on other movements because they're the ones that's profane. They're the ones that suborn genocide. They're the ones that rip up the international laws and rules of engagement and do what they want to do and based on the proposition that might makes right. So I think that we should hear outcry from Black elected officials, from the Congressional Black Caucus. We should hear outcry of condemnation, if not condemnation, at least uh, uh, um, uh, disgust with the decision that the State Department made in regards to Ambassador Ibrahim from South Africa. And the fact that our Black elected officials are quiet tells us that we need to get rid of these comprador class, these bootlicking niggas. We need to get rid of them. We need to get them out of office. We need to run them out on a rail and put in new, vibrant, young people who are willing to stand up for their communities, who are willing to challenge the power of white supremacy and the status quo in their communities. And so I think that's the reason why Ibrahim was expelled, so that ordinary people, Black people in the United States, would not be able to identify with the struggles of Africa, of the South Africans, and to take pride in the fact that it was South Africans, it was Africans that brought the genocide and the injustice and the white supremacist murder of people of color, of Palestinians before the International Criminal Court. I'm proud to be African, of African ancestry, and know that it was an African nation that stood up for humanity and that stood up for the people of Western Asia.
Right on, right on. It's just wild looking at South Africa, 35 years since the ending of apartheid, and also just to your point about them um, bringing this and requesting um, that Israel be looked at as committing genocide when other folks were afraid to say anything, and that was just like what last year. It's a little over a year, so it's kind of ironic, quote unquote, that all of a sudden they're saying that this man is, he's a racist and he should be, kicked out because of the fact that he's basically opposed to U.S. policy, because he's basically opposed to the genocide being committed on folks around the globe. While many, as you mentioned, many of these so-called Black elected officials sit back idly, wiggling playing with their thumbs or whatever they're doing. You know what I'm saying? Acting like they don't know what time it is. Rakeem, how you doing, man? You want to?
Yeah. No, it's just it's funny, like, because you kind of mentioned earlier about how whenever you speak out and fight against racism, they end up calling you a racist, right? And some of the terms that I've heard some of these European colonizers in South Africa refer to a lot of the things that are going on in South Africa, as far as a lot of these land back initiatives and fights where indigenous South Africans are attempting to, reclaim what was taken from them. They are actually calling it reverse apartheid. And it's funny how they can even come up with these it's funny how they come up with these ideas when we are only simply fighting for what has been stolen from us. That happens here with black folks in America as well. Anytime we begin to speak out and organize, they call us reverse racist. You know what I mean? And again, it's not lost on me how close Elon and Trump have become, and we see what's happening with South Africa now. I mean, Elon is treating, obviously, with Doge and the U.S. government as his personal playground. I mean, we saw him the other day have a Tesla car show in front of the White House, right? And so, you know, Elon Musk is an apartheid baby. He comes from that line, and so of course he is going to be pro Boer and pro European colonizer in South Africa. So it's definitely not surprising.
Not surprising at all. I don't know if y'all saw that one of Elon's weekly harassing emails to government employees made it to Italy, where he's asking employees to detail what work they accomplished in the previous week or risk being fired. Those people in Italy got back with Elon's ass so quick and were like, I don't know what you doing over there in the United States, but like, it's not finna happen over here. I don't know what they letting you do and who done told you that you run something. But there's no one as dumb as Donald Trump over here who's gonna listen to you. The hubris of this man. And what we see is just this expansion of white supremacy. And we already know that this concept is something that is global, just like the oppression that it imposes upon people. And I thought it was interesting that Ambassador Rasul made mention of J.D. Vance going to Germany to talk to the AfD. And this is basically the new Nazis of Germany. These are the neo-Nazi supporters and their party, and also with Elon wanting to get involved and entrenched in politics in the UK. They are setting up their global supremacist model, and they're getting their allies in order. They're going to the UK. They're going to Germany, places where we already know have very poor records on the treatment of Black people. And they are wanting to expand and export their so-called supremacy. But also, Ambassador Rasul pointed out, there's also exporting of the revolution. Like, there are revolutionaries in these places too. And what we're seeing these days is that in as much as people like Donald Trump and Elon Musk are going off the rails, there's also a widespread outbreak of revolutionary mindset. There is also now a widespread contingent of people who are beginning to say, oh, you know what? These people are not going to save us. Only we can save ourselves. Nothing is going to change unless we make it change. And people are beginning to move in a way that they never expected before. So in as much as we see Trump deciding that he's going to try to rule with an iron fist, we also see people saying, all right, we got something for iron. You know, we know how to melt things down. We know how to move around in other ways where we don't have to go through you. And I know that it's really scary to them, because in Trump's mind, causing all of this confusion, making sure that there's just a constant state of chaos, people are not going to be able to resist. But I do believe that they have something else in store for Trump and Elon and all those people who think that the resistance is not happening.
Well, Kiana, did you? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just want to say that Kiana hit on something that brought to mind that we need to really appreciate that the U.S. empire is in decline, and
Yes.
that the rise of alternate powers of polar production and finance capital and distribution of mineral resources is on the ascendancy, and that China and BRICS are on the way up, and the U.S. and its allies are on the way down. And they happen to be in juxtaposition of each other in the course of their rise and demise. And that's what drives the U.S. fear in foreign policy. That's what drives their policies in Africa. That there will be alternatives to U.S. hegemony and the unipolar system created by the European settler states, the European former European imperialists, whose foremost instrument of coercion is NATO. NATO was in Africa. NATO was in everything but a miniskirt, you know.
Absolutely.
And they have, and when you think about it, NATO should have been disbanded when the Soviet Union collapsed and the Soviet bloc nations exerted their independence and sovereignty, but it didn't. Instead, it kept moving west. It kept moving east. Czechoslovakia and other nations joined NATO. Lithuania and these nations joined NATO, all the way up to Ukraine. And now Ukraine is on the border of Russia, the former Soviet Union, and this has been an existential a red line for the Russians. And so we need to understand that Ukraine is a proxy war that was aimed at revitalizing the efficacy and the existence of U.S. neo-colonies now of the European Union. These flunkies of U.S. and Western imperialism. Western imperialism is being threatened by BRICS. It's being threatened by the global South, who are running them out of their lands and countries and nations and claiming the mineral resources for themselves and demanding a fair price and fair, equitable agreements with foreign investors and those who want to exploit their minerals. And we also need to understand that this has a military dimension. Because the United States has built this military since the end of World War II to be able to engage or project what they call full spectrum dominance in every region of the world. This is no longer possible. And so the United States is trying to knock off its former allies who are now its enemies, like Iran, like Venezuela and other nations. The United States has over 130 nations, I believe, under some forms of sanction. So we need to understand that the United States is like a big prison that builds a bigger and bigger wall around itself to keep so-called prisoners from breaking out, but more important, to stop the world from coming in, to stop people from looking in and coming in. And America is doing that. It's purging migrants and immigrants who are part of the lower class workforce of America. And they claim that they're taking jobs from white folks. They're murderers and they're murderers, vicious criminals and terrorists and all of these things. And this is what's going on in every metropole in Europe, you know, especially those bordering the Mediterranean and Western Asia. So I think that people need to understand how this is impacting us, how this is impacting U.S. support for in the Sudan for the former Janjaweed, who are perpetuating a civil war that has displaced and killed over 400,000 people, you know, and that's 500,000 people. And we haven't, and it's never shown up on the pages of the mainstream media. The war in Sudan is only a microcosm of what's unfolding now in southern Sudan and eastern Congo. You know, who are the players there? We need to understand that it's the cell phones that we're using, the software that we're using depends on these strategic minerals that's found in many African nations, like the Congo, like Burkina Faso's gold and uranium, and the Southern Sudan's oil and diamonds, and all these minerals are part and parcel of why the United States conducts its foreign policy the way it does and the type of flunkies that it utilizes in order to perpetuate this exploitation of Africa. This is why Pan-African youth, this is why people like Ibrahim Traore and the leaders of the Sahel Confederation are considered number one enemies now of Western hegemony and imperialism, because they have run the Americans and the French out of Africa, out of their territories. They have created military alliances and a trade with so-called BRICS nations, with Russia and with China. China supplied Ibrahim Traore's military with drones and equipment to be able to fight the so-called jihadists and terrorists dominating significant swaths of Burkina Faso's territory, and these drones and stuff were provided by China, and the funding of many of these so-called jihadists was the result of money coming from organizations like the UAE, from the United States proxies in Saudi Arabia, and in the United Arab Emirates, and so this affects us. This affects the budget of the U.S. military, which is twice the size of the budgets of the top 5 militaries in the world, and the United States is a hegemonic entity. And it's on its way, it's on its decline, and it's becoming increasingly anti-democratic, popular, anti-freedom of speech and assembly, and we see this in the way the police deal with dissent, the way universities are dealing with dissent, the way voices are squashed and the BDS movement is criminalized. We are living in a proto-fascist moment, and I think that we need to understand that fascism was always an integral part of the European federal state of the United States, and that fascism is manifested in its electoral college system and its bogus democracy.
You mentioned Ibrahim Traore a few minutes ago. He just celebrated his 37th born day 4 days ago. We know that Thomas Sankara was assassinated at 37. What do you what's your thoughts on Ibrahim? Because again, he's been doing great work, but in comparison to Thomas Sankara, do you see him carrying on that dream and that spirit of Thomas Sankara?
Well, I think that we don't know what the future may hold, in its entirety. But I think we should support those uprisings and those moments in history that distill and personify the resistance to New Age imperialism, the resistance to global white supremacy. That he may or may not succeed, but the idea and the role and the role that he's playing at this historical moment is exactly what's required by Africans, to be able to think out the box, to be able to remove the paradigm or challenge the paradigm of white hegemonic control, neo-colonial control of Africa, to run the elites out of Africa who has collaborated with this control for the past 50 years. We had the non-aligned movement that arose at the height of the Cold War, so that recently decolonized and liberated territories from Indonesia to Africa to Asia came together at Bandung and declared themselves non-aligned, neither with the forces of the white supremacist capitalists or with the forces of the Eurocentric Union of Soviet republics. Now that Cold War is over, but at that particular time, there arose leaders from Nkrumah and Mandela and Nasser that saw that this was a historical moment for them to take a position in a Cold War that tried to draw them into taking sides and being proxies for one or the other. It was in this period, I might add, that the USSR did train liberation movements, did train the fighters of Angola and Frelimo and ANC and the PAIGC. So they did play a positive role in the process of decolonization from the West. For a hot minute, many of these movements, these liberation movements, were socialist in nature. They were, but of course, once they became part of the community of nations, they had to deal with the reality of emerging globalization from the in the aftermath of World War II and global finance capital. So many of these liberation movements have become reactionary today. When we look at Frelimo, we see that Frelimo was collaborating with Western oil interests in order to take and remove land from peasants in Mozambique. When we look at Angola, Angola is cozying up to multinationals that have exploited and deprived their peoples of the resources or the consequences of the resources they have. So we see that revolutionary movements, once they get in power, to survive and to maintain that revolutionary direction is very difficult, if not impossible, without a change in their understanding of how global capitalism and white supremacy is at work. I think the Chinese mastered that. I think China has mastered that. I think when Mao marched in to Peking in 1949, and the Kuomintang and and Chiang Kai-shek fled to Formosa, or West Taiwan, that they went through a series of setbacks and progressions until they created the system which controlled a capital, which controlled the effects of private ownership on the masses of people, and they melded it with a socialist and a mass a mobilization program, education program. So today, China is on the rise as being the leader exporter of technology, of manufacturing, and even non-technological goods. So it's possible that Traore and the Sahel Confederation can succeed in changing the paradigm of neocolonialism in Africa. It's very possible. I've read somewhere that that Ethiopia has signed on to the Sahel Confederation as well. Other nations are considering this. And so what's happening in places like where I'm at in Ghana, in Nigeria, and other places, that the political elite are afraid. They're afraid that their military might emulate Traore and the young coup makers of the Sahel, who envision empowering their own people and putting the resources at the control, their natural resources under their control for the benefit of their people. So yes, he can succeed, and I believe he's starting to create a groundswell amongst young people in Africa. Traore is more popular in Kenya than the Kenyan president. He's more popular in other parts of Africa than the ruling elite, and this is sending fear down the spines of these so-called African leaders, with their condominiums and bank accounts in London and on Wall Street in New York and in Paris. It's sending fears down their spine. So they are turning to the U.S. and the West for support in undermining this trend, undermining this tendency. And so it remains to be seen whether Ibrahim Traore would be successful. But my prayers go with him. I would move to Burkina Faso in a heartbeat if my French was better than it is now, but I'm still considering it.
I thought you said you'd come back to Atlanta, brother.
Well, I am coming back to visit, but I wouldn't want to stay there.
They say it's a nice spot in the West End.
Yeah.
You come out here and protest Cop City, brother. Get arrested. What they say has some that good trouble.
I feel safer ass out south of the Sahara on the eve of Armageddon than I do driving down the New Jersey Turnpike at late at night by myself. You see, and so I don't know, man.
So check this out, though, man. We're gonna switch up stories. There's another story that I want to get your take on real quick, man, before we let you go. About this UN judge who was convicted in a slavery trial. This black woman. Hold on, let's pull this up real quick. You know what I'm saying? So we can get your comment on it, man. So they said this UN judge is convicted in a slavery trial. We got a video we'll be showing, but Lydia Mugambi misled her victim into traveling from Uganda to the UK, then confiscated her passport and forced her to do unpaid domestic work. A judge for the UN and Ugandan High Court has been found guilty in the UK of forcing a young woman into slavery. They said the verdict was delivered on Thursday by the Oxford Crown Court. Prosecutors argued that Lydia Mugambi deceived the victim into traveling from Uganda to the UK under the pretense of legitimate employment. Upon arrival, as I mentioned, the woman was compelled to work without pay as a maid and to provide childcare services. Mugambi confiscated her passport and visa, restricted her freedom and ability to seek help. The jury convicted Mugambi on counts including breaching UK immigration law. They said, according to the prosecuting attorney during the trial, they said that Lydia Mugambi has exploited and abused the victim, taking advantage of her lack of understanding of her rights to properly paid employment and deceiving her as to a purpose of her coming to the UK. I want to play this video so that we can see what Lydia Mugambi had to say.
Is it playing?
Yeah, I can't hear
it.
You can't hear it?
No, we can't hear.
Oh, you mean to tell me all this time I've been thinking that you could hear me and you couldn't hear it?
Oh, we thought you were trying to
so
work
unfortunately,
something
I'm going to have to now arrest
Yeah,
you on suspicion of keeping somebody in slavery and servitude under the Modern Slavery Act. So you don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention my question, something which later on in court, anything you do say may be used as evidence. All right. Sorry?
I am a judge in my country. I even have immunity. I am not a criminal.
You've got immunity in this country?
Yes. I have a diplomatic passport.
You're a diplomat?
Yes.
So we'll need to see that then.
Yes.
And then we'll need to speak to the embassy if you are a diplomat.
I came here as a student. I don't need her to work for me. I didn't come with her. She asked me because she has worked at my home before. She asked me.
That's what she had to say. Yeah.
The shock and awe
that
she could possibly be a diplomat.
Mm-hmm.
You're a diplomat?
But let me, could I say something about this? I've been living in Africa for some time now, and this type of trafficking and deceptive uh, um, foreign employment has been used time and time again on young African women. Especially here from Ghana, especially to places like Dubai and Abu
Mhm.
Dhabi and and um, and Western Asia. And it's not unusual to have people taken to Italy, mainly Italy, and Paris and the UK under these pretenses, brought there by. And you got to remember, the people that bring these folks there are connected to the political elite of the countries from which they are trafficked, from which they are deceived. So these are people who are cronies of the people in power, who are able to get visas drawn up, who are able to bring young women to certain areas, and then transfer them to gangs and cartels running prostitution rings and fronting as domestic service um, um, providers. They confiscate their passports, they put them up in hotels, and they pay their bills. They can't move around. They don't have any papers, and gradually and eventually, they are deported back, destitute, back to their country if they're lucky. I know several people like that personally, mainly coming from Kenya and Nigeria. So this is not unusual, And so the fact that she was busted and she had diplomatic cover, I think was meant to send a signal to certain classes of African elite that the things are getting tight now, bringing foreigners and Africans in through their visa systems, in through their in through their networks into the UK, and then exploiting them. But this is typically done in sub-Saharan Africa to countries in North Africa and Western Asia.
One interesting thing about that Daruba did mention is Dubai, and you got events like the Olympics, the World Cup, and if you kind of ever, whenever these the Winter Olympics, Summer Olympics, World Cup, whenever they are building, their Olympic centers or their World Cup centers, you can always read about the workers that they are quote unquote importing from other nations. And having all of these different human rights violations that nobody ever does anything about.
Mhm.
The International Labor Organization estimated 16 million people are exploited in the private sector, including domestic work, construction, and agriculture. And when they say exploited, they're literally meaning forced labor, right? And these are things that a lot of people don't really, when we see quote unquote undocumented workers, and they get this stigma, get the immigrants out, but nobody's talking about the work violations that they are experiencing, the human rights violations that they are experiencing here in America. We don't even have to go to the UK, you know what I mean, or have to go outside of America to even see this. And so yeah, man, like Dubai, the Olympics, the World Cup, with these rich folks here in the States, that's what they do. They will find any way that they can to subjugate and exploit the labor of Black and brown folks in the global South. And again, I agree with Dhoruba. I just think they're making an example out of this woman because it runs so rampant with all the
Mhm.
ruling elite. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, there is always the need to remind Black people of who they are in their place,
Hmm.
not to get out of your place. It doesn't matter what position to which you ascend, you have to be reminded that you are less than, that you were never even meant to be here. And the fact that you are here, don't get too comfortable while you're here, thinking that you can get away with the same things that these white men get away with. that's not what can happen. You can't even get away with the same thing that a white woman can get away with. So it's just a reminder of her blackness and that she's not even supposed to be in that position. And further to that point, that it's okay and overlooked for others because those things are open secrets.
Yeah.
Very open secrets. And we see it a lot. We even see it here. I mean, Rakeem, you're in New York and you know.
I'm in Carolina.
Oh, okay. I thought you were in New York.
No, it's all good.
But in New York and in New Jersey, during the time that I lived in Jersey, 20 years, the amounts of times that I saw a so-called group home that was run for young girls who came from the Caribbean, and they would go there and they are supposed to be working as domestic workers. But the exact same thing was happening to them, that their papers were taken. They were not allowed to move freely. They were basically indentured servants.
Yes.
And yes, also being trafficked for other reasons. There was a big story that broke here in Georgia a few years ago with Border Patrol agents trafficking migrant workers.
Wow.
Like this stuff is happening all over.
Well, this whole brouhaha over immigrations and migrant workers, it's estimated that I think 10 million or so immigrants without documentation. Many of these corporations that employ them know that they're undocumented, know that they're doing the type of work, a lot of it hazardous work, in different fields, whether it's meat packing, whether it's agriculture. This is a lot of stoop labor. It's performed by so-called undocumented workers that the corporations and employers know are not documented.
That's right.
You see, so this is a form of not only indentured servitude, but it's a means by which white supremacy can escape the consequences for its own contraction of resources and social programs that are designed were designed at least to benefit our working people. The history of union busting in the United States is well documented. I think George Jackson pointed out in his back and forth with Angela about the efficacies of socialism and communism as systems of benefiting working people. One of the things that George noted, I can't remember exactly where, was that he quoted Marx, who said that in the industrial age, that the working class was the most revolutionary class in society, because they were the ones that were positioned to be able to transform and overturn the means of production, and the owners of the means of production overthrow them. And George pointed out that the American white working class, you understand, is not revolutionary. One of the reasons is because it's a white supremacist working class, and it has never really fought for the emancipation of working and poor people in their entirety, and that at rest, a revolutionary, a working class at rest is not a revolutionary class, it's a reactionary class. And we see that the white American working class is a very reactionary, self-centered, self-serving working class. And this is one of the reasons why unions have no power. This is one of the reasons why we even have armed agents of the state fronting and being considered workers. They have their own unions, and armed agents of the state are not workers. But yet and still they're enjoying working class status. They have unions. They're negotiating with states and governments for their benefits. They have They have extra legal protections that nobody else, no other workers have. They could commit murder in broad daylight on candid camera and get acquitted and get off based on some dubious shit that they felt their lives were being threatened. Where it was at risk. So they shot the person 49 times. You see, and so we have come to the point where we have to understand that the nature of the white American working class is reactionary, and its organization has always been reactionary. Now that doesn't mean there weren't moments in history when the working class in America was the most progressive or a class or the most powerful class in the United States. It was so powerful that Roosevelt had to create the New Deal in order to bring the United States working class and economy out of the Great Depression of '29. So the financial collapse of 1929. So, I mean, the New Deal, Social Security, all of these things that emerged from there are now being taken away, are now being chipped away. And just like the Civil Rights Movement, where Dr. King and others who were committed to nonviolence and who were fighting for integration into the American dream, that they were given symbolic victories. We were given the Voting Rights Act. We was giving desegregation of schools, the Brown versus the Board of Education, all these symbolic acts. And they have proved to be symbolic because Trump was able to come into office and take away all of them with the signing of an executive order. You see, to diminish them with the signing of an executive order, and judges have been basically allowing it. So we see that many of the victories that we thought we won were basically symbolic victories. And they were victories of the moment because we had mass movements, because we had mass protests, because the world was in a period of revolutionary change. And this change had to be addressed and had to be diverted and had to be co-opted. So these symbolic victories were given to us. And now we see that as the empire is beginning to contract and that the minorities will soon be the majorities in America, that these symbolic victories are rolled back. DEI is rolled back. The first person that Trump fired from the military was the black chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I guess he thought his job was safe because he was the nigger on the trigger. But it's clear that only when we have a mass movement are we able to exert any type of concessions from the oligarchy and the corporate political powers, and that unless we have the type of organized mass movement that could exert consequences on the system when it ignores our needs, when it ignores our communities, then we're going to be subjected to be led by the Cory Bookers and the bootlickers like Jeffries and Meeks and that piece of dog doo-doo in New York, Eric Adams. So we have to mobilize. We have to take advantage of this moment. I think it was somebody correcting me to let me know that it was Dickens that said, "These are the best of times and these are the worst of the times." We have an opportunity now that we didn't have before to mobilize people around the removal of the comprador class. We have papers on them. We have receipts on these niggas working for AIPAC, on these Negroes working for police unions, on these Negroes working against the interests of Black and poor people. We have receipts now. So we no longer have to say, listen to them when they trot it out on election day and listen to their rhetoric. We know now where they stand and what side of the barricades they're on. So now We need to use whatever power or whatever influence that electoral politics can give us in order to remove these people from influence the positions of political power and bring into power those activists from amongst ourselves and from in our community that will raise the banner of working class freedom and Pan-African liberation. I mean, we just could look at Ras Baraka in Newark, New Jersey, and see how pathetic this process has made him. You know, I used to go to his neo-force demonstrations on the steps of City Hall, and I knew his father very well. Even his father, in his last days, understood that black faces in high places, and the advocacy of that was a mistake. You know, he was responsible for Gibson and for every trawl or Negro mayor that came after him. You know, that onus had to be put on him. And I think he realized that before he passed. And but his son, Ross, came up in a different era at a different time. And he has become enamored to the notion and to the idea that that he is a black politician. He is a political figure, you know. And the only reason we should be elected to political office like mayor is to implement those radical changes in institutions while we are in office. That once we leave office, and it's assuming it's only one term, once we leave office, they will never be able to put the system back together again the way it was before we came. I call it the Humpty Dumpty principle. You know, that's how we should put black people in office, that they should not care about a political career. They should care about making the type of changes that they fought for and organized for, regardless of whatever consequences might accrue to their political future. That's what Trump has just did. He made all of these outrageous promises, and homeboy has come in and he's moving like a hacksaw through through the bureaucracy of the United States military-industrial complex. You know, especially its intelligence and police apparatus, its enforcement apparatus, its ability, the government's ability to monitor corporations and exert consequences for malpractice and corruption. The oligarchy is front and center now, out front. They're no longer behind the scenes calling the shots in the Democratic and political party. They are the Democratic and political party leadership.
All right. Listen, man, we appreciate you coming on board. I think we need to have you on at least once a week, just as a refresh and a reboot. You know what I mean? Because Rakeem was talking about sleeping overtime today, but since you came, you know, he all the way woke. He was like his coffee and whatnot. But, but definitely appreciate you coming on through. You know, shout out to all the comrades out there watching us, checking us out on the morning show, on the Rise Up International Morning Show. This is Black Power Media Reloaded. And we do it every Tuesday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Now today, as you noticed, we jumping out a little bit earlier. Don't trip. You know what I mean? We gave you too much. We can't just have you OD. Y'all got work to do out there. You know what I mean? So we appreciate you all stopping through it. As a matter of fact, make sure you get the book. If you don't have the book, Revolution in These Times. Dhoruba, they loving the book. Folks that have seen it, you know, this is a book based on some interviews and commentary that we've done with Dhoruba throughout the years. We have a few more books coming out with Dhoruba because Dhoruba has a whole lot of writings and whatnot. And we think that it needs to be out there. So make sure you check out Revolution in These Times. It's available on Common Notions Press. If you don't have it, you know, check that out. We have a whole lot coming up on the platform, a whole lot of work coming up. And we want you all to stay on the right side of the barricades. Dhoruba, you want to leave with anything before we bounce out?
No, I mean, you covered it all. What we decided that we wanted to deal with it, even although there's a lot of things that require a lot of in-depth analysis and thought and and stuff. But I think basically, I just want to say that in these times, the price of knowledge is to pay attention, and we have to pay attention to what's going on. We can't look at what's happening in Western Asia as divorced from us when we consider that it's the U.S. military-industrial complex that is supplying the very armaments to commit genocide in Western Asia. That Trump is talking about turning Gaza into the Riviera of the Mediterranean and expelling the Palestinian peoples from their homeland. He's telling Hamas, who came out and delivered hostages with hundreds and hundreds of fit fighters in attendance. He's telling them that they have to lay down their arms. Could you picture the Hamas laying down their arms and then expecting what? You see? So I mean, this is how delusional.
Right?
Yeah, this is how delusional. This is how delusional the Orange Man and that marble punks that he have up there. That dude. What's that little dude that looks like a rat? Miller. That dude looked like looked like a feral rat. And Elon Musk looks like a doofus white boy. Looked like a doofus white boy that we used to take lunch money from in junior high school. You know. And I mean, these are the type of political pervert.
Why would take this man lunch money, bro?
Man.
Anyway, we log it out, man. Stay tuned. Once a week we're gonna have Daybreak with Dhoruba. You know what I'm saying? So at the beginning of the week, we'll wake your ass up to that's.
But I'm just saying, man. They resent having grown up in that context, man. That they was always, you know. I mean, you could see Miller was always one of them punks that sulked in the corner during demonstrations on the college campus against the war in Vietnam or something like that. He was always that dude. He was waiting to be recruited by the likes of LBJ or Nixon or Orange Man, you know, and all the vitriol of his otherwise useless existence comes out, you know, in his advice. I mean, this dude, man, you can see that, man. You really want to slap the taste out this dude's mouth, you know, just for gratification, you know, and, you know, I mean, just for personal gratification, man, you know. And I hate to sound that way, man. You know, I'm supposed to be more erudite. I'm supposed to be more erudite and contemplative in my old age, you know. But yeah, so all I gotta say, closing is, don't get mad. Let's not get mad. Let's get even.
No doubt. Listen, man, we out like we came. It's Rise Up International Morning Show. My man Rakeem Shabazz riding shotgun alongside Kiana, Reverend Kiana, who it got calm till she left, man. Then you know what I'm saying. the Dhoruba start committing all kinds of sins. We're gonna be back at you, same time, same Black station, Black Power Media, Rise Up International Morning Show. Till next time, y'all be safe. We out.
Peace.
Sometimes the riot is a quiet one. Well, the battle is to love yourself and function in society where voices of reason are muted by anxiety, like gaining notoriety is selling your soul. So we tend to go no deeper than the shallow water level, trying to keep us overhead in the face of all the slurs and the stares, mentally frozen, paralyzed by fear of failure and success. So we lock, stock, barrel, running while it's crumbling. All these towers and they're babbling, but the baby's in the bath and the stash under the bed on my head, spinning from the circles and the puppets and the strings that they pull. Then we move. Reactionary warfare never produces when it's on the field. Feeble and foolish. What tools and what weapons are we using? We need some new ones. Real revolution. It's real solutions. Well, we've taken on the ways of the ones who conquer with their guns and religion and division. Got my inner me looking like my enemy. Real revolution. Where my inner me really a mirror for the galaxy. New time, brand new paradigms, new contracts to sign. They thought that this would all be televised, though it's happening right before our very eyes. It's on the inside, with their guns cocked. When that rock drops, standing on the rooftop, praying that the mountaintop can live inside the valley. People tell me the reward is somewhere off in heaven, like heaven's only in the sky. Like chariots are swinging, like God is something separate from yourself, from your wealth, from your lover, from your neighbor. Oh, your savior is coming in your own name, coming with the face the same. Real revolution, it's real solutions. Where we've taken on the ways of the ones who conquer with their guns and religion and division. Got my inner me looking like my enemy. Real revolution. Where my enemy is really a mirror for the galaxy.